know if you can hear me okay. Welcome back. Cycle 5 maybe? I know I did a couple of shows earlier this month, but I can't believe 11 days have passed since the last stream. Maybe more. 8:41 p.m. East Coast, Central Florida, back at it. We got a beautiful crescent moon, 32% waxing. Great to see everybody hopping in the chat. It's a little chilly here, so getting some of that turbulence in the view, but it's looking really beautiful. So many great features tonight. All right, what's up, Genghis Khan? Welcome, Mass Bishop and Rostaman Lives, Derek Mary, Astralis, Catherine Danette, Ryan and NC, what's happening? Rainbows and Butterflies. Great to see everybody. So yeah, so I tried to fix this OBS issue with the tiny fonts, and I ended up fixing it, but what happened is now the preview of the moon in OBS is like 4 times the size. So if anyone caught the first like 30 seconds of this stream, the moon is in a tiny little box. It's in the sunken place. And I was like, what's going on with that? And so now, whatever, it looks right on stream, but in OBS it's all ridiculous. I'm zoomed in like 4x on Mare Crisium. Regardless, lots of good stuff to see tonight. I just want to see the title, Waxing Noetic. So I just want to talk a little bit about Electric Universe. It feels like not many people are doing it. Obviously, the usual suspects. I know Greg J. and Kronos and Thunderbolts Project put out like 1 or 2 videos. Pierre-Marie Robitaille. But I feel like there's so much mainstream cosmology and mainstream thinking going on that kind of felt like I had to come on and talk about it. I was actually going to wait till tomorrow, but the heck with it. We got some clear skies tonight. We got some beautiful moon. We got some hexagonal craters. And I think it's just important to hear that consciousness is outside the human body, and we live within these kind of shells of our life and oscillate with those shells. And talk about how everything is truly connected within this paradigm and this simplistic form, this torus and the hourglass shape that pretty much lies at the heart of every shape in our reality. And how beyond that, you know, there's so many things to derive, but if we're still stuck with these ideas of speed of light this and the second law of that, we're never really going to be able to change and adapt to new things. So getting set up here, I'm going to get my drink and all. Let me know if you have any thoughts about Electric Universe or any questions you might have been pondering recently. Or let me know about a song you want to hear. I actually started writing some new stuff recently, so I'll play y'all a brand new track from 2 nights ago. Super duper fresh. It definitely needs to be mixed a little bit better, but this is called Dark Rum, or Dark Drums. Dark Rums? Yeah, Dark Drums. No, Dark Rum. Yeah. Well, you can tell it was late, but lots of reverb on this, but it's an interesting tune. So let's listen to some new stuff while I get my drink ready.
I can feel
right, that was a fresh one. Hopping in here to say what's up to Ellie Wynn. Great to see you. Hi, Debbie Carson. Great to see you as well. Blackjack Pershing has a good question to kick us off. I hope y'all enjoyed that first one. It's a little bit low in the mix, but that's just like absolute first pass. I tell you a little story about that one. So it's been a while since I really wrote. No, that's not true. I've written a lot of new ones, but it's all been on the small guitar. I played a lot of the demos, and I'll actually play y'all another demo tonight. But I haven't actually sat down and recorded a full track from beginning to end since like Electric Blood or Bring Me Back, which was like in July or August. And then I kind of did Willpowered, but I haven't really put together a brand new one. So this one the other night, I was just like, man, really got to sit down and like just write and also like finish something. So this one was like 1 a.m., got to the computer, and at 3:30 I finished this take. And so that's a tiny little story there. It came like literally I didn't actually re-record any parts. This is complete stream of consciousness writing, and maybe the guitar solo, like a couple of takes. But oh damn, P&K Space Imaging, I was thinking about you today, man. How you doing? Hope everything is well. Happy New Year, belated. Good evening. You're the only person with the wrench in this channel. Who else? Anybody else go? Love that new tune. Thanks, Ellie Wynn. So let me just get my ashtray. Yeah, so while we look at this, I'll tackle that first question, so I'm kind of talking while I also play a couple of new tunes. So Blackjack Pershing says, do you think it's a cooperative and or financially backed effort to suppress the truth for so long on so many levels? So I think it's a really broad question, right? It's obvious that that's the case when it comes to even mundane things. So for example, a technology company like Apple, for example, will have more advanced technology than they ship to market. By many years, probably, right? And this is not even a nefarious thing. This is something that happens with all types of businesses where you plan and you talk about things for years and they finally come into fruition. Or you have a really grand idea that takes many years to finish, and you can't even get it to the public before it's done. And due to the fact that this is part of marketing and part of selling products, the truth has become commodified. And I think not has become, has probably always been commodified to some degree. So you had to pay a price for wisdom, or you had to be part of the elite to have access to books, and so on and so forth. So academia, to some degree, I feel like had a certain purpose because that gave you access to information. But we're here at a place now where people go to college and schools and they learn something that's very limited, in fact. So it's kind of contrary to what is great about science and great about learning, is the exploration of knowledge and the questioning and the ability to kind of change your mind about things. So to go back to the beginning, so if Apple is hiding a phone, and you could call that a conspiracy, right, to some degree. You could say a group of people that don't tell you have a piece of technology that they have yet to release. So I think this is, in turn, like why the power structure is built to withhold information is the point here. So it is both good, because if you're in business, that's how you would operate a business. But it's also bad because operating that way leads to the fact that you're going to withhold technology that could be beneficial to people. And therefore, we live in an age where there's all this sort of technology that could help many, many people. But because of the paradigm of monetization and capitalizing on every type of product, and also milking every product until people get sick of it, you do end up in this place where it's really about the selling of information and technology versus the understanding and interaction on a holistic level. I know that's kind of deep, like right out the gate, but I'll talk a bit more about that because that's definitely what I've been thinking about. But I feel it's both, like, I know that's like one of those wet answers or damp answers where it's both good and bad, but I think definitely the answer is yes, information is withheld from the public for a varying number of reasons. But at the same time, I think if one wanted to, since we are all I've spoken about this before, we're all deities to some degree, not to some degree, we're fully deities, I'll explain that, then we have the ability to understand the universe that we're in, that we make. In a way, I can't even get away from how deep this conversation is, because truly, to reestablish the baseline here, the principles that I kind of feel are really accurate to the human experience are the fact that when I heard Alan Watts talk about how the humans create their own organs, their own bodies, right? When you realize that physically you can't get away from the fact that you've created your own lungs, your own nervous system, your skin, right now you're growing your own body, and you're killing your own body. Therefore, we already have God powers that we portray, that we look at other, like TV shows, for example, and say, oh, they've created this lifelike robot. But in fact, you've already created a whole body. Honestly, as soon as even when you're a baby, you've already created a brain, a spinal column, lungs that work. You've done things that are far beyond your articulation or your ability to do right now. If I asked you to build a heart from scratch, you wouldn't know what to do. But you've already done it. So from the standpoint that we create our own human existence and our own physical forms, then we are able to, then we are one with all information. Now, via limitation and blocking out certain wavelengths, blocking out certain sounds, blocking out certain people, you get to have a singular kind of path experience. However, we do have access to all of it because we're intrinsically one with it. Let me just jump in here and say what's up. I see a bunch of people joining. Let's see. Donald Yates, what's happening? Charlie Silverman, what's going on? Rockstar, good to see you. All right, cool. So, yeah. Very deep, very quick, but so let's think about it. So if we have the power to create a human body from zero, then this idea that information is kept from us by certain organizations is both true and not true simultaneously, since that structure that keeps information from the self is the self itself. Right? So when we're looking at space, we're looking at a reflection of our own existence. And I know that sounds kind of hokey and metaphysical, but really it's the same physical relationship as we see these hexagons on the moon, and then we look at molecules or bubbles or butterflies or anything, and we see these hexagons fractally recursive throughout these objects. The same way consciousness exists in this geometry, we look at the moon and it is one with our own consciousness. So I think the power structure that keeps information hidden from the people is a natural occurrence, is ultimately the answer. So, but it can be viewed as bad, as nefarious and conspiratorial. It could also be viewed as natural. The same way we look at death of the self as this tragic affair, but then we look at a plant or a flower wilting or an animal on the street that's been run over, and we give it nary a glance, nary a thought. And so you think about the value judgment of that, it's simply due to the fact that every single oscillator, the human, the animal, the plant, is trying its best to survive or oscillate within the ether. And when it pops, the bubbles nearby notice this pop, this death. Do we know what happens after that? we don't know exactly what happens after that. However, you can derive this idea that if every single one of us has layers of conscious plasma and these bubbles erupt and pop into what exists right now, and who knows if consciousness is fractalized and goes off into all these little different versions of yourself throughout reality, which is the propagation of species along a Birkeland filament. I think where I've gotten to with electric universes, you can kind of figure out the geometry by which these things are occurring and therefore derive metaphysically and consciously what might be happening. Yo, Jedi Princess, what's happening? Z-Proxy says, also, what's up, Z-Proxy says, ever seen skin regrow under microscope time-lapse? I certainly have. I would also check out, what is it, Newt? N-E-W-T. Newt grown from cell to, it's like it won the National Geographic time-lapse, like macro time-lapse thing. And you see these exact structures that I've drawn that Theoria Apophysis has, Ken Wheeler's talked about. The stuff you see under the ferrocell, these cells replicate and multiply, and you start seeing bubbles pack, and then all of a sudden these bubbles turn into platonics, so pentagons, hexagons, diamonds, and they form the strongest shape they can within this oscillation and pressure mediation. Once they reach equilibrium, the boundaries are created. Or, it's a process that goes hand in hand. Not, no, one doesn't denote the other. One necessitates the other, rather. So skin is hexagonal, right? It's these hexagonal lattice structures. And so if you tie that into the surface of the sun, if you've ever seen convection on the surface of the sun, you'll see, and you put that next to microscope imagery of the skin, or an embryo or cell mitosis, you'll see the similarity. And it's due to the structural geometry that's inherent within all oscillators in this ether. Let's see, Genghis Khan saying there's more talk about black holes belching energy and plasma, so things can escape and leave a black hole. So it's tough to watch these shows that reference black holes as 100% relativistic gravitational entities or devices in the universe. Because when you take black holes from that standpoint, you end up in places where you have questions that can't be answered. One being, Stephen Hawking's original idea that no information can leave a black hole. But if no information can be garnered from a black hole, then you can never prove whether it was there or not. And then others will say, no, there are no black holes, you can't take pictures of them. But scientists will retort and say, well, we're not taking pictures of actual black holes, we're taking pictures of where a black hole would be because it's pulling objects around it, but we don't see the black hole itself. Then you have others that say, that picture from that won the Nobel Prize is an actual photo of a black hole or a constructed photo, and that's real. But even that shape is a donut, right? That shape is the shape of what they call an accretion disk, but more so it's a plasma bubble, right? It's the shape we see in all sorts of different ways on Earth, in the human body, on the moon, in space. So the tie-in that makes black holes really more confusing than they are is this idea that they have these parameters like the Schwarzschild radius, like an escape velocity at the event horizon, the fact that information goes in and doesn't come out, the fact that there's speculation about multidimensionality of traveling through a black hole or what exists on the other side of it. But really, when you consider what's going on in terms of plasma, in terms of magnetoelectric interaction in space, there's absolutely there's no need for this object to exist as such. Now, is the effect of a black hole that's recorded where they see stars being pulled around an invisible center, that's real data. So it's difficult to nuance this discussion without both giving credence to the fact that the data is real and the interpretation is what's actually still primitive or intentionally primitive. What's happening in Fantasy Ecstasy? What's going on, bud? Just a little bit chilly here, so forgive me, but the moon's looking fantastic. I want to show us some Earthshine really shortly, but those are some thoughts. I think a little bit more about black holes I think what I would love in science is just a little bit more of the ability to discuss some of these much more complex ideas, like the speed of light, for example. There's this idea that light has a speed, right? But this is an arbitrary measurement from the perspective of humans. And when I say that, a lot of people who have their mathematician degrees will tell me that I'm the idiot here. But the fact of the matter is, if we continue to apply these rule sets, the human-centric rule set, on a universe that manifests itself as many different creatures, and creatures, I mean planets and stars, then you have to take these into account. And in a way, relativity does have this idea of a relational quality to the universe. However, it says that there's nothing in between all these objects. So it does away with this medium of the ether and says, no, things are kind of floating in space based on mass and gravity and bending the space fabric continuum. The space-time fabric continuum. So space-time being a fabric, again, is one of these things that I've had to ponder many times, because if you really immediately dismiss it as propagandistic rhetoric, then you don't really garner what was trying to be conveyed with it originally. However, the notion that you can somehow, you can reify time, and by reify just means like take math or take language and say that physics, the physical reality of nature is such that I wrote something about it, therefore that's what it is. So people have said, okay, there's this very fancy way of talking about time and space, and we're going to put it into math, and because it works on paper, therefore reality is like this. Now the problem with that is that now we have telescopes. We're looking at the moon right here. Case in point, I'm an amateur astronomer taking a look at hexagonal craters on the moon. Should be able to have a deeper and overturning conversation about how lunar features were formed. So for example, when people take pictures of nebula today, and you see the geometry associated with it, and you see the consistency of it, things like redshift, speed of light, the geometry of these shapes, time, fabric of space-time, things being solely denoted by big G and C, are things that should be debatable, because physics shows that these rule sets that have been applied don't actually fit perfectly. And I'll give you an example of, just with Halton ARP and redshift, and how redshift now is really one of the primary, if not the primary way of measuring distance and age in space. But with what is it? I always forget this, but it's a compendium of peculiar galaxies by Halton ARP. I forget what the first part of it is, but something about peculiar galaxies, where he took all these photos of galaxies and showed physically with photos how redshift could also be interpreted as a measure of age and heat rather than distance. And that in and of itself should have flipped people into thinking about it and talking about Halton ARP, but nope. And in that case, to Pershing's original question, that's where I think the power structure absolutely buried Halton ARP, and he's one of those figures that is completely is never talked about correctly and or almost at all in terms of scientific circles. Maybe for the lack of knowledge, but also mostly because it's very obscure. But what he was talking about is absolutely groundbreaking and would overturn tons of different concepts if found to be true, which personally I think is correct. What's happening, yo Q, yo Q, and what's happening in Lost Brooklyn, and what's happening Howie Dunn. Cheers. All right, let me tend to the moon a little bit because we got a great view tonight, and play some more. Yeah, DC is looking crazy, but you know, we just got to power through. We've lived through crazier times, and you also made your own body, so deal with it. I love it. If you really consider what that means, the fact that you actually are creating your body right now, you're growing organs, and you're making it all work together. You can't get away from the physics of that. It completely defies everything about, oh, poor little me, poor little human, it's all happening to me, incoming asteroid, incoming extinction, global warming. No, but you literally created your own human body. Therefore, death is a non-thing. Death is this price we pay for living, and it becomes one and the same with living, as opposed to this tragic story by which everybody is terrified to live a single moment in anticipation of death. What's happening, Copper Trops? Good to see you. All right, new jam. Let me see. Well, this is Bring Me Back. Y'all have heard this before, but I updated the mix and the vocals. So let's jam to this for a little bit.
Bring me back.
I think that was not even the right mix, but whatever. That was one of the newer ones, but I think the first half is not even right. Anyway, that's how it goes. 9:15 on the clock. I realized that the moon's actually setting a bit far west tonight, and now it's about to hit the tree line, so that's a bummer. I thought I'd have a little bit more time with it. Either way, I'm going to stick with our wide shot. We can watch it for a little bit longer, and then definitely catch a shot of Orion before I call it a night. I will try and stream again tomorrow and the day after, because it seems like it's going to be clear and not too cold. But let's see what's going on in the chat. I see YoQ asking me if I ever heard Local 58, the broadcast station. Nexpo did a film on it. I'm going to check that out, actually. I have not heard of that. I'm just going to paste it here. Let me know if you have any other thoughts about consciousness, but let me remind everybody, please, if you support this channel, check out Eileen McCusick, check out Rupert Sheldrake, check out Thunderbolts Project, of course. So many people recommend types of videos to me that I'm bewildered by the fact that people spend so much time listening to mainstream podcasts and interviews with people who just are so cynical. And I'm talking about specific people, but I feel bad sometimes really throwing other channels under the bus or saying that they shouldn't do what they do, because you can't stop people from believing what they believe in, and you can't stop certain science evangelists from being, stuck to the dogma. But I do feel like there has to be an alternative opinion, a logical, rational debate about larger ideas, not just taking things as they have been for years and years and never questioning it. And I guess I've been seeing this guy, Eric Weinstein, go around on these different shows. Let me know in the chat if you've listened to anything by Eric Weinstein, or if you've checked out Lex Fridman. I know by even saying these channels that I'm probably promoting channels that I don't want people to spend time listening to, but definitely it's like this new kind of Joe Rogan pseudo-intelligence. And I'm sure I sound very arrogant saying that people like that are pseudo-intellectual, but I think if people are not even considering a couple of these factors that I talk about, and that I didn't derive on my own, of course. I heard Alan Watts, I listened to Rupert Sheldrake, I listened to Donald Scott, I listened to all sorts of different people, and came to my own remixed conclusion, which is the fact that, again, speed of light, worth debating. Where the moon came from, worth debating. Redshift, worth debating. Space travel, how does that work? The radiation shielding, worth debating. History of Earth, geology, worth debating. Consciousness, where does it reside? Inside the brain or in shells outside the body? Needs debating, needs talking about. The fact that, YoQ, you've heard of him. Yeah, I mean, I feel like these guys get so many views, and they sound so smart. They sound smart. And then I give them a listen, and I just hear them going in circular discussions, almost flexing their ability to regurgitate dogma, if I may put it so neutrally. I mean, sure, it bothers me, but I try and think about it from the standpoint of where these guys are coming from. They're busy trying to have a career in science, and if you want a career in science, you want to write books, you want to be accepted by these power structures, then you have to abide. That's really ultimately what's going on there. So not to rip too harsh on some of these channels, but more so to say, if you're listening to any of these channels, listen to how they talk about consciousness and the speed of light. Listen to how they talk about scientific idols. Who do they reference? Do you ever hear Velikovsky? Do you ever hear Brian J. Ford? Do you ever hear Donald Scott or Wal Thornhill or Pierre Marie Robitaille? You only hear them in these tiny circles, and on either people trying their darndest to discredit what is obviously our physical reality. And then two, you hear about it, of course, within the electric universe circles. And to be fair, that definitely has grown in the last 5 years due to the work of a lot of cool people in the plasma cosmology, and just people who are willing to question things but also do research and augment the thinking. Let's see. Catherine Dennett says, "Are we creating our reality?" So I think every object, not I think. So the principle, the paradigm here is that if you can imagine an apple, and I can pull that up on the screen once the moon goes down. But if you have an apple, you see the center of the apple has these seeds. The seeds contain information. We think about them as containing information. And you replant the seeds and you get a whole tree out of it. What's around the seeds? You have the flesh of the apple. So you have all this kind of foamy mass around these very dense pits at the center. So I imagine in terms of you don't see your plasma shells, right, around your body right now. But if you can just imagine that these plasma shells exist, then you can understand how sense works, how vision works, how sound works, how connectivity works, how absolutely everything in the universe can be derived from this one fundamental understanding. So the issue that we have is that quantum mechanics says that this is true. Special relativity cosmology and Big Bang cosmology, standard theory, says this is not true, that things have mass from the core, that there are no shells of plasma of consciousness, and that things are not connected, things are islands in the Goldilocks zone. Like Earth, for example. Oh, it's in a specific spot, therefore that's Earth-like. But in fact, every planet and every star is completely connected via Birkeland electric root systems. And every planet, from a star, human, quantum particle, rabbit, even a table, is a type of oscillator within the ether. So the ether is potential charge, and the oscillation is due to vibration. Now, where the vibration came from, the original voice, the original word, are you invoking the word that creates all reality? I would argue that yes, to some degree, because you've created your own physical body, that the self is what created the original vibration. Do we remember it? I don't know. But I do know that I definitely created my own body, and definitely I feel that consciousness is outside the human body, and we deal with layers of... This is where I was going to say time, the fabric of time and space could be interpreted this way. In an odd way, like I wanted to dismiss this idea of the fabric of time-space, but of space-time, but if you really consider it as plasma bubbles, you could theoretically relate it to that. You could say that every oscillator, let's say your heart, for example, is an oscillator. Its pumping, its rhythm, creates an interaction with potential plasma in the ether. And not just the potential plasma, but also the nearby bubbles. So your mother's womb, you yourself are in a sheath. When you're born, you're released from a bubble into another bubble. And this connectivity is what it's all about. So even though your umbilical cord is cut, people are still connected to their mothers via an invisible, quote unquote, electric circuit. That's how you can feel one another, through this means. So to answer your question, Catherine, is this reality, quote unquote reality, is the interaction between the oscillator and the plasma shell. So are we creating all reality? Deep down, yes. But is each oscillator creating its own reality as well? That too. And then you have the overlapping geometry of all those interactions, and therefore we get a very complex looking fractal reality that at the very core is very, very simple when you think about it in terms of a donut and an hourglass shape. that creates oscillations that look like onion skins. So if you imagine the shape of an apple, the human is the apple core. Human life is the flesh. And the outer extremity of the apple turns into a skin. This skin is the limit, or this is where you were born. An apple's the thickest part, right, where it dries up and it turns into these cool colors, very different than the flesh that's right underneath it. That came from the center and got pushed outwards. So that would be the birth of the apple, is the skin. The flesh would be the lifetime or lifeline, and the oscillator, the core of the apple, would be the what we used to think as the pineal gland, being this one kind of antenna that tunes into life. But in fact, the human body is a circuit, is a whole cord worth of chakras, each of which has its own version of that. And so in harmony, or in chord, or in accord or discord, the human body is not only receiving information from the pineal gland, but it's also receiving it from the throat chakra, from the heart chakra, and so on and so forth, remixing it and outputting it into its own plasma shell, as well as in nearby plasma shells. So reality is a full mix of all these different things happening. The reason it becomes very complicated is because if you overlay a donut and a torus, this fundamental geometry, over and over and over and over at all different sizes, you start to get all these very cool patterns, like a table and a computer monitor and a jug of apple juice, and you get these kind of objects that seem like they're not part of the original geometry. However, if you break down things to their simplest form, even scientists do this, but just sketch artists do this. They break the human form down into simple primitive geometry, and you're able to basically take any object and apply primitive like diamonds, squares, pentagons, hexagons, etc., lines and dots, to create much more complex geometry that we resolve into an image of a dog or a person or a hamburger. All right. Let's see. Going back up here so I don't miss anything. So that's Catherine Dennett's Are We Creating Our Reality? Los Brooklyn, thank you so much for that compliment. Genghis says she does the tuning fork vibration therapy. Eileen McCusick, yes. Eileen McCusick is one of the, actually really the person that said, when I do tuning forks and she's combing through people's energy fields, the human biofield, and she said, oh, your birth is 30 feet away from you, your midlife is 15 feet away from you, and your present reality is close to you. It absolutely blew my mind. Just one person saying this to me with conviction was able to completely upend my entire understanding of all my own reality, consciousness. I was able to tie together relativity and quantum mechanics for myself. You know, people might think I'm just like mouthing off about this stuff. I don't know the math behind it, but if you can see it and you can comprehend it, then math is just an interpretive language to talk about it. I'm speaking about it in more abstract and honestly, in a way, less abstract, because I show visually how hexagons exist. I mean, sadly tonight our moon's going to disappear, but tomorrow and the day after I'll sketch more hexagons. But you can see right there, Mare Crisium is hexagonal, and people do not talk about this on the moon. They talk about everything about the moon, but they never talk about the shape of the craters. And nobody puts them on the spot. People are like, wow, you're so smart. You talked about the second law of thermodynamics. You must be smart. Versus like, okay, how do you use the second law? That's where if you check out Pierre-Marie Robitaille, he knows how to not only interpret and understand the so-called laws, like Kirchhoff's law and Kepler's law, but he actually knows how to interpret data using them and can adhere to principles. We have science right now that basically just will create ad hoc mathemagic to explain away errors, or just scrub errors out of the record in order to abide by dogma. It's just such a crazy situation. So yes, Eileen McCusick, Rupert Sheldrake. And Rupert Sheldrake, not, you know, they, and I've never really seen them on a, I've never seen them on a show, and I always just keep saying it, hoping that one day they'll get in they'll get in touch, or one of their viewers will say, hey, Eileen, you should get in touch with Rupert, or like, Mr. Sheldrake, get Merlin to send Eileen an email. So they're both pioneers and brilliant thinkers. Let's see. Yo, Miguel Gonzalez, what's happening, buddy? PPP, hola. Hola, hola. Good to see you, brother. Rainbows and Butterflies says, Eileen McCusick explains in such a simple way, yet in such detail, the human biofield subtle energy. Yeah, so to take it one step further here, so the way, you know, people can think, okay, what are these layers of plasma? What's the point of all that? The point is that these thin layers of invisible, so-called invisible plasma around the body encode information. And this information is a holographic representation of a singular instance of life. So if you take the parameter of the human body, these fractal cymatic patterns encoded in the plasma layers encode time, encode smell, encode reaction, because all these senses are made of the same shape fractally. You can derive incredible complexity from very simple fractal patterns like cymatic patterns. So if you look at Rupert Sheldrake's work, and even Eileen McCusick on her channel, she has her hero shot, are those exact same 3D holographic plasma cymatics. These cymatics are what codes, or what actually is like storing a file of life, of existence in a certain type of pattern, is what creates what we see as reality. And these information cymatics interacting with one another is how we sense things. All right, little break here, because I'm just ranting away. More tunes. More tunes. All right, the rough demo right here. Everybody's in the wedding. Don't bet about it. Don't bet us around. Other evil outside. Don't love it every time. Then I'm gonna they bring 8 billion are watching digit players power the minds and living it through. But I'm so for you until you went away. Catching stars for you until we meet again. All right, cool. So a couple of tunes there. There's one that's like really a total mess, but I wanted to play it anyway. That one's called Delicate. If you know the tunes, you'll know you haven't heard that one before, but that was it's the second track after Dark Drums. So I'm just gonna write this new album. Every song I'm just gonna keep it in actual order. I don't know. I think I'm gonna try and go through January and record 12 songs before the end of January, but that's a very heady goal. We'll see. But anyway, Delicate and Dark Drums are new. I'm gonna play something for y'all. Like, I feel like a lot of people love the really polished stuff, but you also like the really raw things. So tell me if I'm wrong. I know it's really sloppy, but I trust that I don't know. People will take it or leave it as they will. Love having my apple cider. Honestly, so good. All right, so this one is an interesting one. This is called Mark on My Heart, and it's also pretty rough. It's recorded on the little guitar on my porch, and you can hear all the stuff in the background, the animals. And what I did is I basically tried to start this riff in conjunction with the dogs barking. So this one is... it's not produced at all. It's really rough, but it's really fun. And I think I might play it just once before if y'all were on a late stream with me. But this will be for all of y'all. Just because, why not? Cool, cool. Let me know if I missed anybody in the chat. I see all you hanging out. Thanks so much, y'all. I do appreciate it. So, and while that's happening, our moon is setting. And then I'm going to switch over to Orion so we can check out M42. I see you there on the corner. I hope you don't come here and sting me, 'cause I can't take it. You're coming too close. There's no need for you to settle down. Try to You left a mark on my heart. Oh yeah, that was the roughest thing I've ever played, probably, on TakeBackSpace. But yeah, I don't know. It could turn into something. I think so. Like some of you know, like I'll just try and write a song from zero, and that was just like a single take of something that I thought like was interesting to share. So we got M42 here in the freezing jet stream. You can see it, it's not clear at all, but we definitely got some neb. We got some trapezium cluster. Ugh, and I just got the chills. I got the chills. But thanks for listening to that one. Yeah, I definitely feel like I could. That was from the same day that I did Hurricane. So it's like I did that. I wrote like 6 songs in a row that day that I really want to turn into things. One of them is that, and the other is Hurricane. But I'll definitely be working on those. Let me see what else I got here. Any questions in the chat? Just check in. Let's sit here with M42 for a bit, and I'll try and find some other things that I haven't played. Yeah, all right. So this is, since I'm going like with the really, really deep cuts, this one is definitely sappy. Sappy as all heck. Definitely thinking about my old mama. She's pretty old, and I wrote this tune, so it's kind of like, it's a bit of a rock tune, and it's completely just a rough mix, but this is called Concentrica, and it's just a 2-minute demo. I think it's kind of fun, so I'm sharing it with y'all. Let me just give it a second because I'm seeing some buffering going on. Yeah, this one's fun, but I'll just hold out for a couple more minutes. Fantasy Ecstasy says, looks so sexy. Never get tired of Orion Nebula. Hell yeah. I concur. I don't know if I would say sexy, but for me, I think it's one of these absolutely profound, I mean, I definitely say it's sexy, but it's profound in a way that is just like, that breaks the mind for me. Mostly because, well, primarily when I first saw it, the fact that you can see this thing is just holy shit, right? But then when you start understanding that we're really looking, well, to me, this is my interpretation, is that we're looking at the cross-section of a Birkeland filament. So the same way that if you cut an apple in half horizontally and you looked at the seeds, you'd get this kind of cluster at the center around the hypotrochoid, around the hourglass shape. And in the trapezium cluster, these 4 stars really do look like they're at the center of this giant apple. And then really, if I took the shot on a clear night, you'd see the kind of arcing circularity and toroidal shape of Orion. Actually, I have my sketch thing up. I got this, right? Let's see if that pull it up. That's not working. Let's see. Damn it. So my paint program is not working, unfortunately. But anyway, I've drawn it many times. Oh, it did work. I just couldn't see it. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough if I can't see it. But where is it? Okay, there we go. Okay, this shape right here. This is the brightest nebula that we can see. And right here is the trapezium cluster. But if you imagine that it's the top cross-section of this hypotrochoid or hourglass shape, you would see these nebular arms coming out like that. And so the Birkeland filament is kind of twisting this way. Actually, it's going up that way. And we're seeing it at an angle. It's so fascinating. It's almost like a limb chopped in the cross-section of a limb or a fruit. And that to me is just ultimately profound, because right now, if you look up standard cosmology about what Orion is, they'll just tell you it's not Kepler. They'll tell you it's a birthplace of stars, right? And they'll point to the Hubble deep view and zoom into Orion. Now, is that an astounding set of images? Absolutely. But the understanding of the Orion Nebula is absolutely primitive in terms of the way they talk about it in standard cosmology. And I just say that out of just doing the research myself. Maybe I'm completely wrong that they teach it correctly, but if you look up standard cosmology, Orion Nebula, and try and figure out what it is, and how it was structured, and why you can see it, and why there are 4 stars, and why it's diamond shaped, and all these other things, you'll see that there's very little information about it. What's going on, Mr. Miner? Did I ever get into Danny Wilton back in the day? Gotta say I haven't. That's a new name. Or maybe I just know the work and I don't know the name. But I'll pull that up in a tab. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap. Ladder of Lights. That's pretty cool. Check it out for sure. Thanks for the recommendation. It's the same sort of stuff, though, ultimately, right? It's this Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, and the Kabbalistic structure works within this geometry. It's just one section of this hypotrochoid toroidal geometry superimposed, and you can draw Maxwellian numerological systems. You can draw Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life. You can draw the chakra system. You can draw the human biofield. On and on and on and on. It's the one ring to rule them all. I thought about that the other day, but it's true. The toroidal energy field, the centrifugal divergence and centripetal convergence that Ken Wheeler talks about, is absolutely shown in every aspect of life, from consciousness to language to nature to space, and on and on and on. And you can superimpose that geometry on absolutely everything, and you can understand how it works and how it fits together. And standard cosmology will tell you that we don't understand and we can't know. And that's just not, in my opinion, fair to your average intellect, your average person who wants to understand. To tell them, hey, been there, done that, don't question, is really does no one a service. And I know, because the reason I say this is not because of the trolls and because of the obvious culprits. I'm talking about, like, person to person, the way people talk about science is so antagonistic and cynical, and they know not why. They don't even consider why. It's because of indoctrination to a certain point, right? Or to the ultimate point, because people copy what they see in movies and media to no fault of their own. And then people treat one another unempathetically and impatiently, and are not able to say, well, I always thought the moon was this way, but I actually see other things now, and it makes me question whether the moon is that way. And for the other person to say, wow, that's fantastic, I think this. Or, I don't know if I agree with that, but I think this. Versus now, what happens, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience, is that it resorts to either regurgitating article headlines with no further backup in terms of information, or goes into name calling and just joking, because nobody feels like they have the power or wherewithal to discuss intellectual or high level topics. But hey, what's up, Barbara McGill? Hi, hey. Hey, hey. And yeah, so science discussion among friends could be elevated simply by being more patient and by actually trying to research together as opposed to tear each other apart at the first instance of challenge, right? Because everybody knows that they idolize and laud and appreciate and respect people who have faced challenges. Yet when it comes to science and being challenged about science, people want nothing to do with that sort of challenge. The moon is a coin. Hell yeah, Buried Axeblade. I was almost not going to talk about crypto tonight, but it's just so funny how look at me jumping immediately into crypto, but it's fascinating in terms of energy and physics. But let's see. Did I say everything I was going to say about that? I was going to say that it's just important to care for one another, but not just in name only and say, hey, I care for you. But I think caring is part of like being patient and being able to disagree without ending the conversation. That's, I think, what I want to say. I think it's so important to introduce the idea that we ourselves made our human body, because it gives people pause and something to really consider, even if they don't immediately understand the gravity of what that might mean. But if you start with two people talking to one another, both realizing that they've created lungs and eyeballs and hair and this very complicated organism, this vessel, the human form, is purely physically tied to their own doing, right? Think about it. If you ask somebody right now, who made you? Who were you before you were born? You know, who makes your body right now? Just ask yourself that question in the mirror. Just say, who's actually growing your hair? Is it some abstract law or rule that's written in the consent of culture, or is it really the structure? Is it you that is creating all these things? And once it dawns on the self that the self creates the self, then you can start from a standpoint that both people, both instances of human existence and consciousness, are at the very, 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 very base equal, in the sense that we're all gods. So nobody has to put the next person down in order to have a discussion. So right now, people put each other down and hurt each other because they feel inferior or superior. When in fact, while there are those metrics, you know, you could say that right now, I'm a better guitar player than some people. And I know people on Instagram and YouTube who are just so much better technically than I am, that maybe I'll ever be at guitar. So there's always a better than or worse than from a perspective of, from a relative, this is where relativity, you know, Einstein's relativity actually does play a great role in understanding relativistic thinking. So you're thinking in relation to your surrounding culture. But in terms of at the fundamental level, the worst person in the world, the dumbest person in the world, also created their own eyeballs and their own legs and their own hair. Therefore, every person, every instance of life is in and of itself the deity, or godlike, if you will. And then from that standpoint, we can have a discussion about things. Miguel, you have a great one. Take care. Thanks for stopping by. Buried Axeblade says 40K. Is it 40K? It's not. My limit would have kicked in. I would have had an alert on my phone. But 40K soon, for sure. I'm loving this idea of just the fact that, like, there is this ability to not game the system per se with crypto, but to get ahead of the curve on the next iteration of money and the next iteration of the internet. You know, coming from some, you know, I've spent at least 20 years online, maybe more, 25 now, since I was a teenager. And yeah, man, the internet is due for a change. Blockchain is amazing. It's gonna, if nothing, even if nothing comes of it, which that's ridiculous, but a lot of interesting people are coming out of it. And not just that, interesting ideas on how money relates to energy. And people have really lost this understanding of currency. Even the word currency is electric, and how money is really true, like related to power in a purely vernacular sense versus an energetic and physical sense. So I really encourage everybody to check out crypto. Just looking at some of the comments. Barbara McGill says, I just left an argument about the shape of the world. The only thing I'll say about those type of concepts, having spent a lot of time looking into all the shapes of the earth, conspiracies and concepts, and very gently, people can spend their time doing whatever they want, right? So I like doing certain things, and people like looking at the shape of the earth. But for me, when it comes to like thinking about new science and physics and software and telescopes and travel and consciousness, it's obvious that an electric plasma connected universe, consciousness outside the body, everything interconnected, symmetry not random, symmetry on purpose. Humans made them their own bodies. Don't need aliens because we already got a moon. Don't need the back side of the moon because, the far side of the moon because we already have the front side. Accepting the existing magic of the universe is truly what the challenge is, right? Accepting that while Twitter is a toxic cesspool of fear porn, that you can find silver lining in people discovering new things. I don't want to take myself out of it. For me, I've been able to use YouTube and B&H Photo to buy all my camera stuff. Like, yeah, it's the corporate machine. It's all these different entities like Celestron and all that. Who are these people? I don't know these people. But through this means, I've been able to download Logic, use an iMac, get all the capture card, AVIO company. Who's that? I don't know who made the 4K capture card, but the enabling. What's fascinating about crypto and these guys like Michael Saylor, for example, who talks about money, about Bitcoin being this energy, is that he started talking about this idea that the internet makes us a god, right? He almost the same sort of spiel that I give y'all about we already made our body, we made our eyeballs, we make our own existence. He gives some guy this spiel about how money and how the internet makes humans God by being able to to stream, basically, to be on YouTube. He makes this correlation. And as I'm listening to him, I'm like, no, we're already that. Only a God can make a godlike network. There's this odd separation of self and other that occurs where even very highly intellectual people who are admittedly mostly self-aware are never aware of the deeper truth, which is in order to make AI, one must be smarter than ultimate AI. Right? The body is operating at a level that's well beyond what computers will ever get to by the virtue of the fact that the entire universe operates like this. So computers will never operate outside of the realm of human consciousness. Therefore, this whole idea of AI taking over is one of those things that can be put to rest, because the answer is yes, AI will take over, but that's the natural order of things. And then, definitely gets into this place where they're like, oh, are you just going to lie down and take it? But I think it's one of these things where accepting versioning, accepting expansion, expecting volatility is much more zen than waiting and being afraid of all these things that may or may not happen. By just saying, think about it, nobody wants to die. I mean, that's not even fair. Some people do. But the idea that your death is imminent makes people feel certain ways, because you're like, wait, I can't get out of this, can I? So the thing is, life is exactly like that too. Every decision you make, you can't get out of that either. You tend to take this idea that somehow there's this notion of free will, and that somehow free will is separate from this geometry. But the fact is, because you've made your own existence, the prison that you've created is of your own making. Therefore, it's not a prison. Nobody says that. David Icke and Alex Jones and these cats, they never say things like, you're in a prison, sheeple, but you actually made it because you're gods that actually created your own bodies. You know, the rest of that sentence is, we've created AI and hyperintelligence, and we're turning into a more evolved group. Like, think about how fungus grows, how bacteria grows. The system ultimately is one big system. Like, again, people read articles about mycelium across Earth that has a singular consciousness, and they immediately jump to aliens instead of thinking that, no, that's how humans operate too. So it's a self-realization that really is the ultimate truth. The dollar sign is a bifurcated infinity symbol. It indeed is. If you turn it on its side, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's the shape. But the thing is, it's because it's that, but it's also because all our language, all English letters, and I mean, all language letters are built from primitive geometry. Circles, lines, tetrahedrons, squares, diamonds, pentagons, octagons. Out of those shapes, one can create all languages. So out of the torus and the hypotrochoid, the hourglass, the self, creates all things. Now, what this shape is intrinsically, maybe that's that revelation that we get when we die. But before we get there, there are so many great questions that can just be purely answered via this mechanism. Let's see. Pixies, hell yeah. Somebody say Morrissey, also hell yeah. Who's talking about Morrissey? Did I miss this? Oh, you saw Morrissey live. You were sober, or was he sober? I would probably believe that he was sober. All right, cool. Let's play some more tunes here. So I'm going to play this song I was going to play earlier called... Do I really want to play this one? I might not play this one. I feel like it's a little too personal. Sorry for the bait and switch on that one, but maybe someday I'll play it. But now I'm in the mood for something a little more moody after my rant. It's called Now I Know Better. 10:07 p.m. Probably going another 15 minutes here, and then I'm going to call it. Appreciate everybody hanging out, Space Fam, as usual. Just a quick thought here about gematria, because I don't talk about it very often. Also saying what's up to Vicky, good to see you. PPP Ellie. And Barbara, I'm not sure if you're like talking to me specifically about it's feeding on your ignorance. However, I still love you, but if you are talking to me, then elaborate, because maybe I missed your point earlier. I was definitely on a rant, so before I play catch, let me know if I can respond to you. I don't mind being ignorant if I know what it's about, but maybe you're catching something that I'm not. Still here with Orion. It's looking a little bit clearer right now, which is nice. I think the air currents have subsided slightly. It's nice doing space again, chatting with y'all, even if it's all over the place. I know that there's so many topics I want to cover, and I end up going off on different tangents, but I think ultimately I'm just trying to very gently create this idea in people's heads that they can ask these questions, and that also there are ways to interpret the universe that are not just complete dead ends, if I put it that way. Also, I know that it's buffering pretty badly, unfortunately, tonight. Let's see, pulling up catch here, waiting for Barbara's response, but also no problem. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Okay. Just play catch here. And, yeah. Let me know if you have any other thoughts, y'all. Otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap it up in a second and get some rest. Try and get some early rest tonight. That's what I've been trying to do over the last couple of weeks, is sleep a little bit earlier, because those nights during December were intense. Intense for the back. Catch coming up.
Living a dream.
think that's it for me, y'all. Just had my last smoke. I'm getting a little sleepy here. Great to see everybody. Vicky, take care if you're running off. Cheers to you. Appreciate all the kind words about Catch. Kind responses as always. And Barbara, Elskar, tak. Alright. One last one to take us out here, and just in case you missed it, I'll play Dark Drums one last time. This is a brand new track, because I want to hear it. Thanks for listening to me rant about all the things. I'll definitely catch y'all in the next couple of days. Hopefully it'll be clear so I can take advantage of that. But definitely on the full moon, we'll have a nice live session, play some more tunes, and maybe I'll be more practiced. I definitely listened to some of the streams that we shared over the break, and gosh, it's so lucky that I get to do this, and y'all are so kind, and the vibes are always really, like 90% of the time, like super duper high vibes. I want to say 100%, but like 99%. That's all I got tonight. But remember, consciousness outside the body. Eileen McCusick, Rupert Sheldrake, and Taurus, Hourglass, Apple. Simple. You don't believe me? Go look at it, superimpose it on all geometry, and you'll see that we have the glasses, we have the matrix glasses, or the they live matrix vision to be able to see everything in our reality clearly. Actually, here's a quick anecdote that I just remembered that I was going to tell y'all. So I know many people have practiced lucid dreaming before, and others have had ayahuasca trips and DMT trips, and mushroom trips, and have seen all these geometries. But really, if you ever have one of these experiences, the next time you have one of these experiences when you're dosing, look at these geometries, and you'll see that they fall in line with all of these exact shapes. So when you close your eyes and you sense darkness around you, in fact, even what you perceive as pitch black or darkness, the morphing shapes sometimes will start to resolve into more outlined and starker looking geometry. The geometry is fractally consistent with this torus, hypertrochoid, and onion, like plasma sheath concept, as well as Birkeland filaments. You can see it with your eye, with your inner eye, because we are it. So, all my deities in the chat, hope you have a great night. Remember, look at yourself in the mirror and say, who made you? Or, I mean, who made me? Or, and really think about it. Really think about it. All right, take care, y'all. Catch you on the next trip. Captain out. I can feel like the way I can feel